IBHA.
Hi everyone, I'm Jahnavi and I'd like to introduce you to big historian Marilyn Ahearn. She's from Sydney and has been a member of the International Big History Association. My first question is, how many years have you been involved in education?
Over 35 years in mainly primary education, which is ages 5 to 11. And that's really where my passion for education lies.
How has being a big historian impacted the way you live your life?
I think big history has really impacted on my professional life as well as my personal life, in the sense that I know now where to slot where what I'm trying to learn now, whereas before I never had a timeline. And I find my interest is much greater now because I have this timeline where I can put things, and I know the timeline will change, and that's exciting as well.
How do you think in big history impact other people?
A lot of my work was on transdisciplinary, interdisciplinary education, and so much of our education is in isolation, it's fragmented, and I realised with big history there was this big story that was going to help bring it together, even for primary school children. As someone said, big history is really a vehicle, for learning about the origin story, and it is. We used to have these origin stories that were based on our religion and our culture, and so many of those now are not believed anymore. People, they don't follow their faith like they used to. And so there's a void. So people are wandering in the wilderness a bit. They don't have any origin story. And I always think that's really interesting, how every culture needs an origin story. So if you take away the religious origin stories, what do you have left? Because that was one thing actually that when I did the interviews at the end of my PhD, and the children were saying things like, I used to wonder where I came from, who am I, who is God, where am I going? And then it was like, but now I've got the answers. So they really saw it as something really meaningful in their lives.
Would you be able to give an example about how would you take the story of the universe, especially to young kids?
I use a lot of storytelling techniques, a little bit like Montessori, early child, Reggio Emilia would use. And you can actually take that into primary classes as well. I would tell the story on the floor, they'd be in a circle. And then over the coming weeks, while we were doing that threshold, they would bring it out and they would tell the story to the class. And we did a lot of physical games with it, moving around the sun. And so the teacher's the sun, or somebody can be in the sun, and then the accretion where the gravity pulls. And the fact that we could bring art into it. So, primary, I guess everyone likes art, but primary school children love art, and the maths and science, just even the science and the evidence base that they need there. So it all, as I said, melded in and became very transdisciplinary. It was fantastic. One day I apologised to the class teacher. I said, I don't really think, I'm so sorry, this child doesn't seem to be really, cottoning on to the work. And because he'd only written one sentence on his page. And she just looked at me and said, Marilyn, that is really brilliant. That's the first sentence he's written all year. So, and he was really interested, and he would go home and he would research with his parents. And he was really one of the stars of the whole thing. Yes, it was fantastic, the gifted and talented children, and the rest of the class were doing really well. But it was the struggling children too that I just found it was so amazing.
Were you the first person to start the big history course in the school, or was it already available?
No, I actually found it a little bit hard because it was so transdisciplinary, but going beyond the outcomes for the grade. Some people were going, how are you going to do that and cover the outcomes for the particular year level anyway? And I was given range to do it, so that was good. And then they just realised at the end of the year how much more the children had learned than, within, a normal school year.
Thank you so much for your time. To read more about Dr. Marilyn, you can check the description. And I'm sure many aspiring teachers would also want to get in touch. I'll also put her email in the description. Do like, share, comment, and subscribe to the International Big History Association's channel.
IBHA.